Let's talk about why selling sometimes feels heavy. Not awkward, not uncomfortable, heavy. This has been a big point of conversation for many colleagues and clients recently. People are having conversations, but the sales aren't happening. As CEOs, we typically assume it's a confidence problem, but what if it's not confidence at all? What if selling feels hard because you don't fully trust the numbers behind what you're selling? I'm Megan Schwan, your accounting sidekick. This is the Profit Points podcast where we connect what's happening behind the scenes to show you how to show up as a leader. When sales start to feel slippery, it could be a numbers problem. When your numbers aren't clear, sales conversations start to wobble. You might notice things like you hesitate when someone asks about pricing. You are quick to customize. You over explain instead of confidently stating value. Or maybe you feel a little bit of relief when a prospect doesn't move forward. And it's not because you're bad at sales. It's because ambiguity or uncertainty kills conviction and your prospects can feel it. So, today I want to talk through 3 parts of fixing this problem so that selling can feel calm, confident, and aligned once again. So, part 1 is to get clear on what your numbers are actually saying. This first step The first step of almost anything is clarity, not action. And the same is true here. When numbers are unclear, your brain fills in the gaps with fear. If you don't know what your services truly cost to deliver, where your profit is actually coming from, what your margins are, and what your capacity can realistically support to meet your deliverables, then every sales conversation feels risky. And if you're not seeing that on the surface, that's where your numbers can help you get clear. You're not resisting selling, you're resisting that uncertainty. This has happened to me several times in the last 12 years that I've been in business. Usually, when I've come to that inevitable place of having some growing pains, this shows up. I wasn't confident in my capacity or processes at those various times that this has come up. And as a result, I was actually unconsciously avoiding or discouraging the yes from prospects. I had to do some self-reflection and some analyzing to figure out what was going on. I had to start by figuring out where that resistance was. And a big indicator of that problem was when I noticed my conversion numbers had decreased. Numbers in your business doesn't just relate to your financial P&L numbers. It's all the numbers in your business. So conversion numbers is one of those. Instead of converting at 70%, I was converting at about 30%. Which was like, whoa, right? So I was like, there's a problem here. And I had to go back and really do that self-reflection to get that clarity. And the same is true in this instance for you. The best place to start is with reflection so that you can achieve that clarity. So step 1 is really just asking yourself some questions. 1 is, what do your numbers already say to yourself, what do my numbers already tell me about what's working and what's not? And where are my current gaps? And then we can move on to part 2, which is addressing how you're showing up or how your services are showing up or your products and how they're packaged. So stop letting custom work quietly erode your margins. Once you have that clarity, the next step is containment. And custom work feels helpful, but it often hides the real problem. Custom work often leads to scope creep. Ever heard of that? We've talked about it before. It also leads to inconsistent delivery, pricing hesitation, because then you feel that resistance because, if you're customizing everything, are you really getting paid what your value is? Are you really hitting your goals and achieving your margins? And a lot of times that custom work does actually, in fact, lead to thinner margins. And when your margins shrink, So does your confidence, because you start to feel it. You start to feel this in other areas of business. Maybe your cash flow is coming up short. Maybe you're scrambling to pay things, or you're reducing your own pay. Those are all big red flags that there's a problem when in your numbers, with your pricing, with your selling, all goes together. When you're constantly adjusting, you stop trusting your pricing, and then selling becomes exhausting because you don't feel confident in your sales conversation. So fixing this part means that you have to decide what stays standard, what costs extra, and what you're willing to say no to. And keep in mind that you can standardize things while also keeping things custom. An example I like to use, because I think visuals are always really helpful, is the souvenir that I got while I was on our cruise last year. This bottle is the same, and this is a standardized bottle, right? The sticker, that's on here is the same. But my name, because it's customized, right? And what goes in, that part is what can be customized. And the same is true with your products and services. You can have a base and then add upgrades or different elements or extras that can help you customize to meet your client's needs. This gives you the ability to provide more options without adding a ton of work, and still allows you to scale and delegate, which is really what we want to do when we're building a successful and sustainable business. Okay, so part 3, let operational clarity show up in how you sell. Okay, so now that we've given ourselves space to evaluate, get some clarity, and take a look at how we currently have our products and services set up, this is where everything starts to change. When your operations are clear, you will stop over explaining yourself, which can be a deterrent in that sales conversation. You can stop over justifying your pricing because you're confident in your margins and why you have it set the way that you have it set. And then you stop negotiating against yourself. Instead of convincing a prospect, you are now guiding a prospect. Instead of hoping that they're going to say yes, you're actually qualifying to see if you actually want them to say yes, right? If they're a right fit for you. And prospects can feel that calm certainty immediately. When your back end is solid, which is your pricing and your operations and your capacity, your front end, like sales and marketing and all of that, becomes simple. I'm going to say that one again. When the back end is solid, the front end becomes simple. Okay, so this week's action step is practical. I want you to pick one service that you sell, and I want you to answer 3 questions for me. What does this actually cost me to deliver? And if you don't know that, you need to figure it out. You need to break down the cost and make sure you include labor. Number 2, what margin do I need for this to be worth it? And, sometimes you got to work that backwards. Like, what do I need to pay myself? And how many of this do I need to, now that I know what the cost is, how many of these do I need to sell to get to that number? And then number 3, where do I usually customize or bend? And I would even reverse this question maybe a little bit too, and think about what are the things that come up frequently in deliverables. If you have been customizing, where is the pattern? Where is the thing that you can actually see be consistent? Because that's where you can maybe start with standardizing and then adding in some of those custom pieces. Anywhere in these 3 questions that you feel tempted to just adjust is usually where your clarity is missing. So be very, very aware of what your answers are to yourself so that you can make those adjustments. And remember, this all impacts how you sell, because if you have confusion, it causes fear, and fear easily puts you into survival mode and puts your prospect into no mode, right? In action mode, which impacts how you show up. And even if you or your prospect can't put a finger on what's happening, everybody knows it's there. So you need to address this problem, especially if you've been coming up against this issue of having conversations but getting tons of no's. Okay, basically, selling doesn't feel hard because you lack the skill. It feels hard when your foundation underneath it isn't solid. When your clarity improves, your clarity in pricing, deliverables, systems, capacity, when your clarity improves, your confidence also follows. And that really impacts your sales conversations. Selling stops feeling like pressure when confidence starts to show up and starts feeling more like alignment. And this is exactly what we help and specialize with our clients with as part of our Profit First implementation and coaching services. So if you're looking for more clarity in your numbers and your profitability and systems, send me a DM or go to chatwithmeg.com to book a free, no obligation consultation. There it is, chatwithmeg.com for more information and to get that figured out in business, because 2026 is going to be your best year yet. This is the Profit Points Podcast. I'm Megan Schwan, your accounting sidekick, helping you build clarity behind the scenes so it shows up everywhere else. And I will see you next week. Bye.